Okay, everybody, we're going to continue on with our project. So we're pretty much at the last steps of just kind of building the basics of this. And again, after that, you can take your portfolio, customize it, make it fancy, make more components, make all sorts of fun things, all that good stuff. So now our next adventure is we're going to go to our app.js, and what we're going to want to do is first get the data from our Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so to do that, jQuery has a built-in function called Ajax. Okay, there's other popular ways of doing this using like fetch or Axios, but it all pretty much works the same way. Okay, the way you're going to want to do this, okay, is we're going to you take the dollar sign symbol, that's the jQuery function, and then that has a method called Ajax. And inside this Ajax function, we're going to want to pass the string where our data lives, which is again that URL we got from Excel back in the first video. I mean from Google Sheets. So you're going to take that URL and we're going to plop it in here. Okay. And what this does is that it's actually going to go get the data from that page. The problem is it returns what's called a promise object. And a promise object, what it does is it says, hey, the data's not going to get here right away. It might take a few seconds, might take a few milliseconds. So we'll give it to you when it's available. So you want something to happen once the data arrives. Okay, and you don't know when that's going to happen. So there's a function that you can use off a promise. So off of Ajax, off of fetch, off of Axios, they all work the same way. I can use this function called .then. It means when the data arrives, run this function. So inside the .then, we're going to pass a function. Okay, and this function is going to be what happens when the data arrives. Okay, that's going to be what happens when the data arrives. Okay, cool. So here's what we're going to want to do. We need to first put a variable for that, because what's going to happen is going to pass that data that arrived into this function. So we need to have like a parameter in our function to receive that data. So we're just going to call it data. That's simple enough. Okay, so the data that we're going to get back is data. Now we want to make sure that we're getting the data we think we're getting. So before we really do anything fancy, we just want to console.log the data to make sure we're actually getting what we think we are getting. Okay, so that should be it so far. Now let's go back to the browser, take a look at our locally live page, and here we can see what we got back. So here's the data. And we want to examine it because we want to get our data. Okay, so basically this is a data. Okay, we want to go into feed, because if we remember right, when we were looking at this earlier, it was feed, then it was entry. So let's look for entry. There's entry, and then that entry has 3 items, and those are our 3 things in our spreadsheet. Okay, so but the problem is, like, see, like this is like all ugly, like GSX. Yeah, that's going to take forever to like to think through. It's not really like the easiest thing in the world. So we want to take that array and change it into something easier to use. Okay, we want to transform the data. So now that we know that we have the data, and again, everything has to happen in this .then. Okay, we can't do anything outside of it because the data only exists inside the .then. That's what the .then is for, to make sure that we have a space where that data exists. Okay, so keep in mind, everything's got to happen inside the .then. If I put code referring to data outside of the .then, it's just not going to know that data exists. So I got to do all my magic here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that. So it's again was data dot feed dot entry. That was an array. Okay, an array has a function called map. Now map allows us to take that array and build a new array from that array. So map. Okay, we'll come back to what the map function does. But we're going to want to store the result of the map in another variable. So we're going to say const projects, because that's what these are. We're basically creating an array of all our projects from our portfolio, portfolio. And what map does is that it's going to loop over the array and run this function on each item. Okay. So it's going to take the first item in the array, do a thing, and then do the same thing again. So each item, we'll just call it item. So the first item gets passed into this function, then the second item gets passed into this function. And for each item, what we want to do is return a new object. That's much easier to look at. Because again, what are our 4 properties? name, get, live, and image. Okay, that's what we prefer to have, right? So what we need to do is we're going to go say this new object, it's going to equal the item. Okay, and again, the item, let's go take a examine. Oh, get image before not found. Where did the console log from before go? Okay, I think it's just complaining about this function, so I need to fix that first. Okay. Let's just make all of these just an empty string for now, so that way it just doesn't complain. Okay, and then let's just console log project so you can see what it's doing. So we can see the data before we transform it, and then what happens when we turn it into projects. Okay, so you see here in feed entries, this array has 3 items in it, and we're going to map over that array. Now what should we get after we mapped over it? An array of 3 items. But see, it's all empty strings because that's what the map returned, an object with a bunch of empty strings. What we want is that we actually grab those properties. So we need to figure out where these properties exist and then put them in the code. So first, let's open up the first object because they're all the same. So item the first time is going to be this first one, 0 here. So I go to that one, and the first one I want, each of one's going to be GSX $name, so I want that. Inside of it's a property called $T, and then there's the name, dev nursery. So that's what this is going to be. It's going to be item dot GSX $name dot $T. Okay, let's see if that worked. So before I do the next one, let me just double check that that worked. So let me go look at the second console log and see now all of them have the right project name. Because again, that function keeps happening for each item in the array. So I got the right pattern, and now I can do the same thing for each one. So just copy this for each one, and then change this to get. Change this to name. No, that's going to be live. And then this will be image. Okay, so we're getting there. Nice. Okay, cool. So basically what we've done is now we've taken our data and turned it into something much more useful. Okay. See, into an array with all our data, but see, that looks a lot nicer than dealing with this. Okay. So oftentimes a good favor to do yourself is to take the extra step of making your data look easier. Okay, instead of just using the data the way the API gives it to you. Okay, especially when you're using all sorts of different third-party APIs, which you'll be using a lot of different APIs. Actually, most of your work as a developer oftentimes is pulling data from third-party sources, rendering them onto a screen. So getting used to this and using these tools to do that is going to make life a lot easier. So what we're going to want to do is we want to generate the HTML for all of these. Okay, so we're going to do another map after projects because we want one big string with all those my card elements. So we're going to do const, okay, final HTML. We'll just call it const final equals projects dot map, and then again it's going to go over each item in the array. So we'll say proj or project, make it a little bit more semantic, a little bit easier to read. And for each one, we're going to return a string. Okay. And we're going to return a string with the HTML we want, which is just this. Okay, we really just want the my card element. Okay. And then we just want to put in the properties, which is name equals project.name. Okay. To make this a little bit even easier, we can do this. No, actually, I'll keep it like this. One step at a time. Project name get equals project.get so I think you guys see where this is going. Okay, live equals $ project.live. Yay for string interpolation, makes life a lot easier. Okay, and the last one I want is live I want image equals $image project.image. Okay, cool. So that should generate that. Now let's double check that what we think it is. So again, console.logs is our best friend. We always like console logs between each step, so we make sure that each step is doing what we think it's doing. Final. So now if I go down here and I collapse this, I got 3 strings, each of them with the my card thing. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is replace these cards with that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go back to my index.html, kind of get rid of these cards. We don't need these anymore. Okay, and then we're going to use jQuery to grab that section. Where are we? app.js. So we're going to grab the section. So const section. We always put it, whenever we're going to use jQuery to grab something, we're going to use a $ to denote in the variable. And we're going to say $section. That grabs it. And then we're going to say in section .html, so the HTML inside of the section tag is going to equal final.join. Okay, and we're going to put an empty string in there. What that does, it just takes that array of strings, final, and turns them into one big giant string, one big string of HTML. Okay, and now if we take a look inside the screen, well, we have our cards. They're a little big, but we can work on that. Okay. But you see it did the thing, and then we just kind of style it from there. So we can style our image. We can read up on the ShoeLace documentation, how to style the style card overview small, slot, footer. Okay, I want to style the image. That's what I'd like to do. Card, here we go. Card image, 300 pixels. So let's do that. Let's just copy that for styling since they already got that set up. Okay. And let's see how that looks. Oh, I didn't quite do it. Or I can just actually, well, I actually have to put the style on the card. My bad. So let's go back to our components. That's where we define the image tag. So actually, just to make this a little bit easier, card, I'll just call this img. That'll be the name of the class, and then we're just going to add a class equals img so we can style the image in the component. And now that looks a lot better. So now we can play around with the styling of, because see, these are just cards inside the section. So we just need to style that section element. So we'll go back to our styles. Did I already have a style for section? I don't think I did. So we'll do a style for section. Oh, did I not have a style for section? Interesting. Section. Section should be display flex, which it seems to be already behaving as, but okay. Is that changing anything? Nope, good. And then let's just line that up better. So we're going to use justify content. And we're going to use space around. That should make it a little bit better. See if that, there you go. See, that looks a lot nicer. Okay, there you go. So you can see, like, there's Alex Merced's portfolio, and you can put more information, you know, have fun with this. So hopefully this kind of helps you in the process of building out your portfolio. This gives you a starting point for building a portfolio using these particular elements. So you've learned how to use web components. We've used ShoeLace a little bit. We've used jQuery, and yeah, you use you pulled in the data from an Excel spreadsheet. Now, like here, if I go over here and add another, so if I go back to my portfolio website, alexmercedcoder.com. Okay, and let's pull that fourth project now. Copy image, or copy image address. I want to add that to here. Evil. Or evil, whatever. Copy link address for evil. And I think that was the app link. And let me get the git link, copy. So see, I just add this here. And now when I refresh the page, now, okay. See, it's starting to get a little bit wider than I'd like. So maybe I'm going to want to wrap. So I'm going to add wrap here. So we're going to say flex wrap equals wrap. And then we're going to say I want the width to be 90% because I always think that's a good way to go. Just makes it look, gives a little bit more space. And because of that, we're going to want margin 10 pix auto, so that way it centers. Okay, let's refresh. Yeah. And actually, let me refresh it over here. Okay, and see, like, it could look better. Okay, on different, you know, you work on it. Again, this was just a really quick dry run. I didn't spend too much time with the styling in the project. And the links are those pictures are breaking there for some reason, but I think it's just more like it didn't. Yeah, not sure why it's not pulling the pictures, because they are pulling the pictures here. But you guys get the idea. And I can also just see how responsive it is here. I can just do it like here, like this. So I can see that there's some work for me to do on to get it like more responsive on mobile. Let's see how it looks like on an iPad. That's how it looks like on an iPad. Okay. So different ways to work with it. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.